Hey everyone, it's Dr. Hayes, and right at the top of the video, before I even state the topic of today's video, we're going to go with trigger warnings first, which are essay and grape. For this entire video, there is no let up at any point from either of those two topics. The entire video is basically about that. So that's a trigger warning. Like I said, there's going to be no let up during this entire video. There's no timestamp I can send you to. The entire video is going to be about that. So I'm sorry if this video isn't for you, and I'll catch you in the next one. But in today's video, we are going to be talking about the author Miranda Grant. So if you don't know who Miranda Grant is, which I didn't before this, they are an indie author who primarily writes what they call dark romance. On her Goodreads, she has 25 distinct works, and out of 5,000 ratings, she has a 3.54 star rating, which is pretty good in my opinion. So just looking through some of her titles, we have Death Do Us Part, Cursed to Be Mine, Madness Behind the Mask, Broken Souls, Tethered Souls. Those are just some examples, but those are the kind of dark romance books that she writes. Now, full transparency, I haven't read any of these books, and after what I found out during the research for this video, I definitely do not want to read any of those books. However, the book of Miranda Grant's that we're going to be talking about today doesn't actually seem to be out yet, but it's called Keep Her Under. And you're going to realise what the problem is as soon as I read you the blurb of this book, which is taken from her website, which will be linked below with the rest of the sources, as they usually are. But just be warned, there is NSFW imagery on there, which is fine, it doesn't offend me or anything, but I wasn't expecting it when I was clicking around doing research, so just a warning if you're going to go and take a look for yourself. There's that kind of imagery on there, and I just didn't know when I clicked on it, so I thought I'd tell the rest of you. But anyway, the blurb. Fuck, you're going to make me lose my license. When the most beautiful angel is wheeled into my hospital, I became obsessed with the need to have her. It's all I can think about as she nearly dies on our operating table, having just wrapped her car around a tree. She might never walk again due to her injuries. She might not even survive. But when she falls into a coma, I know the fates are looking out for me. They made it so she cannot run. They want me to fuck her senseless. They want me to risk it all. And for her, I damn well might. Because her eyes spoke to me in that brief moment, they met mine before they rolled back in her head. Do with me what you will, Wraith Slader, do with me what you will. Sorry if that's not how you pronounce the name of the main character. Now, as it shows on this screenshot of the blurb, it says trigger warning, so I clicked on it, but it says 404, so I would assume that the list isn't available yet, which makes sense since the book doesn't actually seem to be out right now. Thank God. However, Miranda Grant did add some trigger warnings under the blurb of the same book on Goodreads. So you can see the end of the blurb just above this. So trigger and content warnings. Remember, this is fiction, and the content inside isn't acceptable in real life, nor are the thoughts a true representation of mine or what I think counts as rape. Coercion is still rape. Abuse of power is still rape. Fucking someone in a coma so they don't know they're being raped is still, you guessed it, grape. So the main triggers you'll find in here are pretty obvious given the blurb, in brackets non-con, somnophilia, I'm sorry I have trouble pronouncing that word, abuse of power, doctor/patient to boot, and brackets. But if you want to see the full list, you can do so on my website once it's live. Like I said, the listing for the book is live on her site, but the trigger warnings don't seem to be up as of filming this video. But I think from the description of the blurb, what it says, we can all work out what the major trigger warnings for this book would be. And I think it goes without saying that I personally think it is disgusting, and a lot of people in the comments under this book on Miranda Grant's Goodreads are in agreement with me. So at the moment, even though the book isn't out, I don't think, the book has an average of 1.1 star rating. So we have one comment that says, hey, yeah, that's not okay, that's not somnophilia, that's straight up grape. I'm a dark romance girly through and through, but what we aren't going to do is romanticise medical negligence and abuse. Edit. The fact that half of the blurb for this is an attempt at defending the choice to publish this says a lot about whether or not it should be. I know it's bad, but this is fiction and it isn't real. It's not an excuse or valid reason to think that putting something like this into the world is okay. Another one said, I think it's pretty fucking weird to advertise this book as dark romance when the summary describes the main male character seeing the female main character in critical condition in a coma and wants to grape her. That doesn't scream romantic to me at all. Also, when the second half is defense claiming that it's fiction so it doesn't count as grape, that says a lot that the author already knows that she's writing is beyond reprehensible and should never have been written, let alone published. And I do absolutely agree, there is a difference to me between dark romance and this. Like, don't get me wrong, I love dark romance, but there is a difference between that and seemingly glorifying the abuse of women in fiction. Another comment says, "This is the first book I've seen from this author and it is vile. Romanticising rape is not okay, especially when the female main character is in a literal coma." So those are just a selected few comments. Of course, there's more discourse in those comments, so I will link that page below if you want to go and read more. Now, Miranda Grant did respond to all of this backlash on her Instagram. First of all, showing death and grape threats she has received, which is disgusting. Absolutely do not do that. Like, I absolutely disagree with the very existence of this book, but I do not think that means it's okay to send messages like this. I'm not going to read them out because they're absolutely vile, but I'll put one on the screen so you can see the kind of vein of messages she was receiving, but I'm not going to read it out because they are absolutely vile. I would burst into tears if I received something like this. And Miranda Grant also has this pinned on her Instagram. "Why do SA survivors read dark romance? After going through something traumatic, most people feel very alone. They either aren't yet ready to talk about what happened, or they have tried and have seen the disgust and discomfort on people's faces, so they keep it all in. Being part of the dark romance reading community makes them feel like they're not alone. 2. Reading about a fictional character who has gone through the same or worse stuff than what we have helps us not to feel alone. The dark parts of our past are not just swept under the rug or forced into the shadows with a FTB. They can be triggering for us to read, yes, but they also give us a feeling of support. We can also find solidarity in someone else's fictional trauma without having the guilt of knowing another real-life survivor. 3. Reading graphic scenes on a page gives us the opportunity to work through the scenes at our own pace. We can close the book, we can walk away. We can work through our own shit by putting ourselves in the shoes of a fictional character, which allows us a bit of distance from our own pain. We can then build up the courage to confront our own scenes. 4. It is cathartic to know that despite someone going through massive trauma, they can still get there happily ever after. We are made to feel broken, less than, trash that should be hidden in the shadows so that we don't make other people feel uncomfortable. Things to be forgotten. Vixens to blame for what we wore or how we acted or how brightly we smiled at a stranger. Dark romance lets us feel that even though we are broken, we aren't incapable of being loved. 5. Reading about SA characters ending up with their grapist is a tough one. It is something that a lot of people will not understand, but more than 90% of grapes are done by people who know the person they've abused, and then there's a statistic from a BBC article. Some survivors read it as an alternative to what happened to them. Others read it as a way to see their abuser apologise, acknowledge their pain, and change in a way that will put them first because the justice system and social system has failed them so badly, and all we have left is fiction. 6. We feel seen, represented. The character is like us, they know our pain. And if mainstream readers can read a book and understand what we've been through, if they can discuss those scenes of fiction, then maybe the next time we talk about what happened to us, we won't be looked at like we should shut up, like we should get over it by now, because it happened years ago. 7. We like to convince ourselves what we went through wasn't that bad, that others have it worse. So reading graphic scenes where characters have it just as bad or worse is cathartic in the moments where we need a break from all our pain and baggage. It's a coping mechanism to convince ourselves that we are okay. 8. Watching a character go through something way worse than we did, yet come out stronger and still get that happily ever after makes us feel better about being able to eventually heal. And 9. A lot of us struggle to feel things after the trauma. Strong dark romance can trigger emotion, making us feel normal. Now, by and large, I do think it's admirable that Miranda Grant has chosen to do this because I can't imagine how difficult writing some of those things are in order to help survivors of SA. And after some things that have happened with me regarding men, I do understand the need to want to take back control and to feel less alone, since I do feel, as just like a general statement, a lot of people aren't comfortable discussing SA, like further than like a therapist or a counsellor, like just like my friends and stuff. I don't think most of them would be comfortable discussing something like that. So I do understand, in general, need for books like that. However, that being said, I do not think as a result that these books should be marketed as dark romance. Like I said before, there is a difference between dark romance, which, don't get me wrong, I love a good dark romance myself, but there's a difference between dark romance and a piece of fiction that does come across as basically glorifying rape. And honestly, this book specifically, all it reminds me of is Adriana Smith, who, if you're unfamiliar, she was a pregnant woman in Georgia who was declared brain dead after a medical emergency, and doctors kept her on life support to allow enough time for the baby to be born and comply with Georgia's strict anti-abortion laws. So a C-section was performed on Adriana on the 17th of June, and 4 days later she was taken off life support. So she was basically used as like a brain dead incubator for her baby because of these super strict abortion laws that have come in with Trump's second administration. And that's all this book made me think about. Now I know Miranda Grant is British, it seems like she's based in the UK, so I know there's a possibility she doesn't know about that, but it's all it made me think about the whole time I was reading the blurb. I was just, that's all I could think about. And like I said, I understand Miranda Grant's intentions are seemingly good. So I'm not saying that grape or sexual assault can't be in books. Like there are other dark books with grape in, for example, a really famous book, The Handmaid's Tale, which is a message about women's bodily autonomy. However, The Handmaid's Tale, as far as I'm aware, isn't marketed as a dark romance because it's not a romantic book. It's dark, but it's not romantic. Not in that sense. But what I'm saying is that a book like this shouldn't be marketed as dark romance because there is nothing romantic about this. I don't know if it'd be like erotic horror, psychological erotic. I'm not really sure if there would be a classification in existence for this book, if I'm being brutally honest. I'm not sure a genre exists for it. But anyway, that's all the major information I could find. There are videos on TikTok I found too, but it was more of just like other people reacting to this book, not so much extra information, so to speak, so you can go and search those out. But yeah, that was basically everything. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Like I said, after some experiences I've had with men, I do absolutely understand the need to take back control, and I understand how these books could help some people, definitely not all people. Like I said, I've been looking at discussions and stuff, and some people who are survivors of SA absolutely do not want things like that, but some people do. I think for me it's more of marketing around it. This book certainly isn't for me, and I don't think I would ever read it, but I definitely don't think it should be marketed as a dark romance because whilst it's dark, I agree with that, it doesn't sound like there's any romance in it. So I'd love to know what the rest of you think about the situation, and please also, before you leave the video, check the description box for any links and resources for help you might need. Whilst there was a trigger warning at the start of the video, I understand sometimes you might click on a video and you're told the trigger warnings and you think you're going to be fine, but by the time you get halfway through or to the end, you don't feel great. So I don't want anyone leaving this video feeling a certain type of way, so please check the description box for those resources before you go. So let us know what you think of this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!